And so, how does brand, overcome those things? It doesn't. It just factors into risk. And people love buying things that are risk-free. And if you've bought if you go into Chipotle 100 times and you like it, then you'll go again. And let's say the first time you ever go to Chipotle, you get a bad bowl, but you don't know it's a bad bowl because you've never had Chipotle before, then maybe you'll never go to Chipotle again. But if you've had 20 good bowls and you have one bad bowl, they've probably bought enough goodwill from you to get a 21st bowl, right? And so there's the content that you make that on its own will reward people for giving you something, which is their time, and you give them some sort of benefit for doing it. Jimmy does it by continuing to entertain people, and we do it by trying to educate business owners. But everyone, as long as the person that you're trying to attract gets what they want out of it, then it's a win. And ideally, when you provide the service or product that you spend all that time on, they buy it and they tell their friends, and then they don't see it as a negative brand experience. They buy it and then they buy the next thing. And so I don't think that brand overcomes those things or sits separately. It actually just is a high lever on the risk.
So you would say that the jab isn't even necessary. It can just be right hooks.
Or rather, right hook would just be all taking. So no, it'd be the other way. So it'd be all jabs, no right hooks. It'd be all gives, and then you just get.
So you used to position your videos way back as I have nothing to sell you.
Yeah.
Do you think school would have had such a successful marketing campaign if you had said at the beginning of all those videos, Alex and Mosley, the co-owner of school, if you want it, link a description, and then just did the same video?
Maybe, I don't know.
Like I found school particularly effective because it was like, oh, this guy hasn't really sold anything to people, and I'm not a portfolio company that he'd want to invest in, so he's just been giving me value. Yeah. Oh, what's the school thing? It's finally the thing he's pushed. Let me get this.
Yeah.
So do you think there's any merit to that, or is congruency probably the better strategy?
Well, okay. So you said, so there's two questions there. So one is, would the school launch have worked as well if I had presented other stuff before that?
That could work. Yeah.
Maybe. If the other stuff that I presented was good. In terms of the congruency piece, I had a huge percentage of my audience that wanted to start businesses. I'm not going to help gazillions. I don't want to build that business. But school is a platform that can do it for zillions of people at once. And so I spent 4 years looking for something that I thought was the best product on the market, and school is the best product on the market in that category. And so that's why I was like, okay, I feel good putting my name behind this, because I also invest in buy companies that I don't put my name on, not because I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but just it doesn't appeal to a huge percentage. If I buy a teeth whitening chain, there's no point in me pushing my teeth whitening chain. If you're in one of these 32 markets, that it's just why?
What's a sentence someone said that broke you?
I don't think there has been a sentence that's broken me. I'm still here. So things that bothered me,
I would say so.
What is a sentence that bothered me? Actually, you know what? There was a term that bothered me. It was one of the catalysts that got me into entrepreneurship, which is I was reading this self-help book when I was on my self-help kick to try and figure out what I want to do with my life when I was 20 or 21. And it said a lot of people are entrepreneurs. And it was people who just reading and talking about business stuff but don't actually do any business. And I was like, fuck. It's that's me. And I was like, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. That sucks. And so I was like, okay, well, I should change that. I think the things that really, quote, break us they don't break you. They just make you aware of a deficiency that you've been ignoring. You're not bothered by things that aren't true. You're bothered by things that you don't like to look at.
On a lighter note, if business didn't work out, you said your plan B was to drive Uber and strip.
Yeah.
What would your stripper name have been?
God. No idea. Maybe something exotic.
I thought that was a funny one in the research. I forgot about that story.
Well, I think what's interesting is that your plan B continues to improve over time. And so basically as you develop skills, and so all I had, at that point was I had energy and I was in shape and I was decently good looking. And so I was like, I will bet that someone will let me dance on some stage if I learned how to do that. and I could drive Uber during the day. So that would give me, I'd be able to earn 16 hours a day and probably earn pretty good money. And then but the plan was never to do that forever. The plan would be to do that, save the money, and then take another shot. And so, I see that as a short-term speed bump on the way to where I'm trying to go. And again, I come from this perspective of like, I don't judge people for how they make their money. If you do what you want, if it doesn't bother you and it bothers someone, like you can boil down most of the trolls on the internet into one statement, which actually helped me a lot too, which was, you make money in a way I would prefer you didn't. Like, you do not live according to my preferences. Okay. And you don't live according to mine. And that's okay. That's why you have your life and I have mine. And so I think it's useful to have these translations because then it just kind of like makes a lot of many or most of these comments just boil down to like, he does things that I would prefer he didn't do. I'm like, okay.
Do you think plan Bs are mostly unproductive?
No. So, there's, it's really interesting because there's on so many entrepreneurial things, you can it feels like you can't have a middle take. Or like, how do you feel about morning routines? You either got to be like, oh, you have to have morning routine. You have to, do your dunks and affirmations, and like you got to sharpen the axe before you cut the tree. And then there's the other people who are like, there's zero routine. Like you just have to start working as soon as possible. I tend to be more in this camp, right? But it doesn't make viral clips unless you're polar on the belief. So like, are you plan B? No, you have to only have plan A and go all in on plan A. And if you're not all in, then there's no plan Bs, right? On the other hand, you can just make the argument that having a plan B allows you to go all in on plan A because you're not being irresponsible, right? Like I think me getting over the hump, like I don't think me having a plan B made me less successful. I think it just made me logical. Now, so said differently, when I see many people really aggressively arguing on both sides of something, to me, it means the thing doesn't matter at all. So like, should you have a plan B? Should you not have a plan B? Well, if people have succeeded with a plan B and without a plan B, then it probably just doesn't matter. And if people have succeeded with a morning routine without a morning routine, then morning routines probably don't matter. And so there's just so few actual variables that contribute to the outcome that everything else just appeals to mysticism, as I think it's just magic, right? It's like, okay, there's this other ephemeral. This is why I don't like the manifestation energy, whatever. And then to be fair, there's like all the people who are like, you have to manifest your life, and there's plenty of people who are like, no, you don't. And so I tend to lean towards the zero, meaning if it can work without it, then we don't need it. So I tend to be a deleter by nature. So like, what can I remove from my life? Because I think it's a more effective practice to think, what are the few things I enjoy? And then to improve my life, remove all things that are not those, rather than try and add things, it's a very American or Westernized thinking, which is that we think to improve our lives, we need to add stuff. Whereas from the Eastern philosophy, to improve your life, you remove things. You simplify. And I think I subscribe more to that.
I think that's good for giving advice too, because so many times people are giving advice to each other and it's always about adding something, but it's more, the more helpful advice is usually what can you take away in this situation to be more effective.
You only have so many hours. There's what was it? There's a really interesting, like if you did all of the practices that are recommended by some health association, just like the government, you did all of them. It's like, you have to walk this amount of time. You have to do this. Like there are more hours. You do not have enough hours in the day to do every health recommendation to prevent every one of the ailments that can occur in your life, which just means you're going to die. and like oxygen kills you one breath at a time because we are all rusting eventually. Like basically you're born and then you rust until you die, just biologically speaking. You literally oxidize, you rust. And so it's just like we try and do these things to like stop one of the 100 things that could kill us. And it's like, fine, maybe we stop that one, but just another one will kill you. And so a lot of this just comes down to trying to just fight off death. And so I think about death a lot, and I think that grounds me in life.
I spent some time with Brian Johnson. It was really interesting watching how
he's a really nice guy.
I thought so. I really liked. I like how much conviction he has about the things he does, because he kind of, like you, people judge for Alex working too hard. Brian,
he doesn't live in a way that they would prefer.
Yeah, exactly. But he seems much happier spiritually, mentally, physically. Observing his life, I don't know if you've got to see it closely. Is that the kind of route you're going with the longevity stuff?
I don't know. I think when I get there, I'll make the decisions that are worth it for me. There's not I do a lot of things that already are. Like, I have been resistance training for 20 years. I probably am very heart healthy. Despite the fact that I live in what most people would consider a high stress life, I would say that most people, my team can tell me, I would say that most people probably wouldn't consider me a very stressed person. I have good days and bad days like anyone, but I don't really think I operate on a super high level of stress. And so there's, from an eating perspective, I eat the same things every day. So I do a lot of these things without, the 80-20 I kind of already do. And so the question is just what the diminishing return is of the other 20.
How do you define stress?
Great question. I might have written it down, so I'll give you a better answer. This is why the book is so useful. I write things down so I don't have to remember them. Which is there's a great meme where it's like the John Cena meme where he's can't believe it. It's like I write things down so I won't have to remember them, and it's like I write things down so that I can remember them. It's like, wait, what? Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah. So I observe anxiety occurring when there are many choices and unclear priorities. Basically, there's conflict. Because if you think about what is a decision, right? A decision is that you cut off options, right? The opposite of having to make a decision is making a commitment, which is the elimination of alternatives. And so there is significantly if you replay the game, the levels of a video game, and you already know how to beat all the first 4 levels, you have very little anxiety because you know exactly what you need to do. And so I think that anxiety comes up when you don't know what to do. And you typically don't know what to do when you have too many options and not enough priorities.
The other successful people that you spent time with, have you noticed that any of them have proclivities toward stress?
Sure. I think Layla's super stressed. And she's very successful.
Given that you two have done similar amounts of volume, is it really just the areas that she's inexperienced with or has done less volume that she's stressed about? Or
I think she's this is kind of like the Doberman versus whatever scenario. I think she has, for whatever reason, a more natural proclivity towards anxiety. I have one that's more tends towards anger. I don't see that as good. I don't see it as bad. Just see it as it is what it is. And I think we've both used, don't overanalyze your pleasure. Don't overanalyze your fuel. There have been many times that her anxiety has served her, right? She uses that kind of frenetic energy and she just channels it towards getting things done. And I probably do the same thing just from an anger perspective. And so this is why I think that we should, I think it's more helpful to not feel like you are beholden or that you are broken, that there's something wrong with you for experiencing human emotions. I think it's just what do you get from them? Because if you can have a negative emotion and make something positive from it, was it a negative emotion?
I guess I just can't see the reward people would get from being anxious.
Well, I think it's they get what they want using their anxiety. Like if you're running a race and you're nervous about the race, you're anxious, and then you win the race. Did you get something from it? Probably. If that anxiety causes you to prepare more for a speech and then you crush the speech, did you get something from it? Probably. So I think people will continue to stay anxious. They continue to stay angry as long as those things serve them.
On you and Layla, you had, when your relationship started, it kind of was the priority of business than marriage.
Sure.
And you kind of shifted that to marriage over business.
December 19.
Do you think, should business come before your marriage? Were those 3 years necessary to evolve past that? Or would you have found more success in that stage had you done that from the beginning?
No idea. Can't replay the game. I know that at that time, it was kind of one of those recalibration moments, same as like February. I was like, this is bad. I want to change this. Or rather, my days are not as I would prefer them to be. I would like to change them, and I feel like there are structural problems, so we should change it. And in December of 19, we had a conversation just on I remember we went out on our balcony, and I was like, I do not like the way that we're living. And she was like, I don't either. And I was like, cool, so let's change. And that was it. We both agreed, we're both in the same. And the one thing that Layla and I have had that's been, call it exceptional luck or whatever you want to call it, is that we've always been on the same page. And it feels like luck in the moment. It feels fortunate. Because I go into the conversations and I'm like, I don't know where this is going to go. Because if she comes back and she's like, I love the way things are, I'd be like, that is a problem. Like, I don't want to keep doing this. And so we've thankfully been on the same page. And I think one of the benefits of living our lives so mutually entwined is that we are exposed to the same stimuli. And so we suffer at the same time, typically. And so if one of us is feeling off, the other one typically feels it. And like, it's wild. Like Layla and I have a very interesting relationship from a partnership perspective, because like there are few humans, I think, that have spent like, especially married couples, that have spent more time than Layla and I have together. Like from the time we met, we spent 2 weekends apart. Like the time we met, well, sorry, excluding the time when I flew out to do the launches. So that was like a 3-week period. But excluding that, from the day we met until now, there's 2 other weekends that we haven't been together. Two. Which is wild, considering how much we travel and all that stuff. Like there hasn't been that much time. And we also spend, like, we're in the same building every day working. We see each other, throughout the day. And for a big chunk of those years, we were remote, so we were at home. And so I think it's like the average married couple ends up spending like 4 or 5 quality hours together a week. Something like that, where they're like not eating, not like dealing with kids, not watching television. Like there's really not that many hours that they're spending. And so we have something like, 20 or like we have the equivalent of like a 7-year marriage in terms of like time that we've spent together, time on marriage. And I think if I lost Layla, it'd be really bad for me. It'd be very hard for me. So I would prefer not to lose her.
Do you actively have to iterate on the relationship in terms of how do we make this better? It's a dichotomy to be managed. You've said in the past, but what have been some things that you found out recently that could be useful to other married couples?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a dichotomy to be managed. I think the thing that has to get managed the most is closeness. And I think that's one that I don't hear talked about enough. I think Esther Perel talks a little about this. She has a book called Mating in Captivity, which I haven't read, but Layla didn't tell me the story, which is how I read all my relationship books I've read in that way. And basically the single premise is that in modern society, people spend too much time together, but not in the right ways. And so this might sound like it's contradicting what I just said, but it's creating space to be missed. And so, especially in a world where like both people work from home, like they're, together all day, it's like they become siblings, they become like roommates. They don't like have that mystery. They don't have that chemistry from a romantic perspective. And so because Layla and I can naturally spend so much time together if we so chose, what we manage typically is creating enough distance during the day, even week to week sometimes, to create enough space to be drawn together. And I think that, like, if you've ever, I'm sure you have, and many people probably have, like, if you've been away from somebody that you care about for a week or two, when you come back, you're like, oh my God, it's so nice to see them. It's like, how do we recreate that on a consistent basis? And so I think trying to actively push the other person away, not in an emotional way, but like physical space, is something that I would say that has been helpful for us, and not making that a bad thing. So there's a difference between wanting to be alone and not wanting to be with someone else. And I think being able to delineate that, like being able to even have that conversation up front and be like, hey, I'm going to take 3 hours and just like listen to this book, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to go work out, or I'm going to go do whatever. I think creating creating the permission where this is not a thing. This isn't me being upset with you. This is not that I don't love you. This is not that I don't want to be with you. This is like, I just need some me time. And being able to kind of give each other the space to do that, I think has been super valuable. Because sometimes you're like, I worked all day, and then you're not like, oh, I want to be married right now. You're like, I want to just decompress for a minute, and then we can go. I'll be like, emotionally ready to do whatever we want to do or talk about. And I think just having that, like making it okay to not hang out all the time is, and I think that's it's like if there's been something that's helped Layla and I, that's probably like one of the biggest ones.
When I spoke to Layla last when I was here, I had asked her, what's something you noticed about Alex that he doesn't realize about himself? And she wouldn't speak to it because it was your frame. But what is something that Layla helped you realize?
It was my frame? What do you mean?
It was, she was like, I won't speak to what Alex would say.
Oh, okay. Heard.
Yeah. So what is something that Layla helped you realize about yourself?
Yeah, understood. What did she help me realize about myself?
Or what's something she noticed that not a lot of other people had noticed about you?
I don't know. I would say that she's helped me develop in a lot of ways. But in terms of like things that I didn't notice about me, I think Layla, because she sees the world the same way that I do, from the same behaviorist frame. She doesn't talk about it as much, but like she sees it the same way. And so she has been like, the person who's going to have the biggest influence on who you are is the person who you hold in the highest esteem, who holds the most reinforcers in your life. And hopefully that's your spouse. And so your spouse is going to have a huge influence on your behavior and like how you act and how you kind of mold over time. And so we've had reciprocal kind of control over one another in terms of shaping and reshaping each other. And she knows what she's doing when she's reinforcing certain activities. And so do I, And so I think that being with Layla, she has encouraged me deliberately and indirectly to be more patient, for sure. I'm so much more patient. So much more, like just so much more patient since she's been in my life. I'm less angry than I was when we met. I would say I try to go out of my way more to be kind to others since we met. I would say I try to be more considerate since we met. And these are all behaviors I fundamentally learned from her. And so I would say like, I think I was going to say buying a spouse, but I think picking a spouse is almost like buying all of the behaviors that you'd like to have in the future from somebody else, and basically saying like, man, I got all these rough edges. If I married this person, I'd probably smooth out a little bit. So I think a lot of it does is like you start here and then you kind of like slowly learn the best from one another. And I think we've both been better off from being together. Like on the flip side for her, I think she's gotten more aggressive. I think she's more direct since we've been together. I think she's less patient. And I think those things have benefited her. And so that's kind of like, that's our yin and yang. That's worked really well for like mutual personal development.
Alex, do you have to go through hell to become successful?
No. You have to learn the skills to become successful. And oftentimes learning those skills is painful because you don't know the skills when you're trying to learn them, and mistakes hurt. And so I think there's just a huge amount of skills that you have to learn in order to be successful. And if we define success as material success for business at least, then it's just, there's so many things you have to learn. It's very hard to learn them scar-free. And I think that's really what it comes down to. But if someone were able to, like, if your father were Rockefeller and you also had, the proclivity to be ambitious, I'll bet you he could probably teach you a lot of the things that you wouldn't have to learn on your own. It probably would be significantly less painful. So I think it's degrees of hell. I'm sure there are some people who have suffered significantly more than others in order to be successful. Almost everyone has suffered in general to be successful, but I also think that people in general suffer. And so when we ask somebody who's successful, hey, do you think the reason that you're successful is because you had a hard childhood? Well, there's tons of people who had hard childhoods who are not successful. So is it the hard childhood or is it just other things? And so again, when I see people on both sides, then maybe this thing doesn't matter. It's not a variable worth studying. I just want to look for the few things that are in common. And the few things they all have in common is that they did certain behaviors that promoted activities, that promoted products. They had products that people loved, and that they just kept buying. And they were able to do that at a price point that generated significant gross profits. They were able to reinvest in the business and gain disproportionate, growth as a result. Like, those are the things that must occur. In terms of the person themselves, I think suffering is a fact of life. And so poor people suffer and so do rich people. Everyone suffers, and everyone's just looking at the other side and hoping that the other one has an answer. Said differently, life is painful. Some people make money at the end and some people don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of people try to retrace the data. They look at the data and they're like, oh, it made sense because of this reason, but
yeah, it's only retracing it in retrospect.
I ask every guest at the end of the podcast, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? But I'll change it for you a bit.
Oh, wow.
If all your books, videos, and tweets were erased from the internet forever, and all you had was the next 60 seconds to leave to the world, what's the most useful thought you could leave to the world?
Figure out what you want, ignore the opinions of others, and do so much volume that it would be unreasonable that you would be unsuccessful.
Well, everyone, this has been your guest, Alex Hormozy. This is the Jack Neal Podcast.
Thanks.
Today's guest moved to the U.S. from Argentina when he was just 16 years old with $200 in his pocket.
Everything in life is a game of probabilities. Is the flip of a coin a higher success rate than starting a business?
He worked as a janitor, pressure washed basketball courts, and flipped wings before he saved up enough money to start e-commerce.
If I thought in quarters, I could never build the Sistine Chapel. If I thought in quarters, I could never build the Great Wall of China. I can't think in quarters.
Now he's made tens of millions of dollars through online businesses and is a successful investor, marketer, and advocate for breaking out of what he calls the matrix.
We saw it with Pavel Durov. He went to France, got locked up. Why? Because he has a tool that allows people to communicate without any fucking back doors. That's not allowed. Why? Well, because we're the system and we say so. No question.
In this episode, we'll explore his journey from broke teenager to savvy entrepreneur, his unfiltered views on politics, relationships, and mindset, as well as the absolute masterclass of social media marketing that's exploded his brand and
va a venir mañana y todo el mundo aplaudiendo porque supuestamente te aumentaron a 160, déjame decirte que no te aumentaron.
Me mandó DM y la hice mía. Me contó que se tocó con mi fotografía. Que video había, solo se invertía. Es lo que...
You've been on the rules. Protect yourself at all times. Follow my instructions. You will keep it clean. Touch gloves. Let's do it. And time. Ready. Ready. Let's fight. Slammed him on his head. No, no, no. Not a second. Stand there. We're going to see a replay. Look. Directly on his heart. No, directly on his head. That was directly on his head.
For your winner, by way of disqualification, Joshua Asio.
Slammed him on his head.
Jared, the Monkey God, rocks. Joshua, the Pack.
He logrado millones de seguidores para mí y para mis clientes. ¿Por qué te interesa?
¿Perdona? ¿Qué ejercicios me recomiendas para el bíceps?
¿Para bíceps?
Sí.
Vale, un momento. Lo que tienes que hacer es flexionar el codo y hacer así.
Atención, agente. Atención.
¿Aló? ¿Aló?
Sebas,
Sí, dime.
mira, Amufa, ¿estás en la casa?
Sí, ¿por qué?
Es que se me quedó la cédula.
¿Y entonces?
Entra ahí a mi closet. Hay una chaqueta de cuadro así como súper grande para el frío. Que es de mucho color, es negra con rojo, verde. Ahí hay un bolsillo.
Don't get bigger, better, you paint yourself wide and feel there'll be something missing. Now that you found it, it's gone. Now that you feel
Tu puta.
Nothing with THC. Can I help you with anything else, though?
No, I need some flour, though. You keep saying you don't have it, but I heard through the grapevine you have it.
Who told you that?
One of your buddies.
One of my buddies.
One of your good customers.
They're obviously not my buddies if they told you that.
I heard you had it.
All right, so some flour, you said?
Some flour.
I got you. I got this right here. It's Nancy Jane all-purpose flour. But that's all I got for you.
What the fuck am I supposed to do with this?
I don't know, but
Besides make hush puppies.
I don't know, but that's if you don't need that.
Hey man, fuck this place.
Fuck you. Don't come back, bro. You just keep going. Just leave, officer. Have a good day. Please exit the building. Please exit the building. Please keep going. What the fuck was that, Dylan?
I don't know, man.
Yo, what's up, man?
Hey,
How you doing?
you got any flour?
Flour? No, nothing like that.
I heard through the grapevine you had the good flour.
No, nothing with THC.
I'm scared, but you.
it.